Well, the world's fastest runner without legs facing charges that he murdered his fashion model girlfriend, shooting her in his home on Valentine's Day. Oscar Pistorious, double amputee known around the world as the Blade Runner, remains in jail charged with murder. And now prosecutors say they're pursuing an upgraded charge of premeditated murder. The Olympic runner has issued a statement strongly disputing the allegations. Let's go to our legal panel now. Brian Silber is a former prosecutor, now a criminal defense attorney. Rachel Self is a criminal defense attorney. So both of you have experience trying to defend alleged criminals in high-profile cases. Brian, there doesn't seem to be a lot of argument that he shot this woman, but you say there's not enough evidence to suggest murder. Why do you feel that way?
Well, you know, the fact that they have an alleged history of domestic violence by itself is not going to prove this case. You know, according to the facts that are being reported, he allegedly shot her through a door, and the night before, his burglar alarm went off. So he probably will make a claim that he thought the house was being burglarized, and he fired in his own self-defense to shockingly discover that he actually shot his girlfriend. And I think that's the direction this case is going to go in.
How strong is that argument, Rachel? What do you think about that?
I think it's a strong argument. I agree. I think self-defense and tragic accident are going to be the best defenses here. And from what I've been reading, crime in South Africa is rampant. Burglaries and home invasions are rampant. Even in gated communities, bribes can be given to guards in gated communities to break into people's homes. And if you think of violence in America, for instance, as a chair, home invasions and violence in South Africa are like an electric chair, from what I've been reading. So I think that it's not uncommon that these things happen. Last year, a father just shot his daughter in a similar circumstance. So I think self-defense and tragic accident are going to be what the defense does.
It's interesting that you both bring that up. A journalist who knew the model in the magazine that she appeared in had this to say about South Africa and about this particular case, and I thought his observations were interesting. I wanted to share them with our viewers. He says this: the best case is that he shot her by mistake, and that is a particularly South African mistake, that we are so paranoid you are ready to fire off bullets when you don't know what is coming. We are such a messed up country in some ways, and every now and then it comes to the surface with events that bring it into such stark relief. That said, though, Brian, the prosecutors say they're going for premeditated murder. That's not the official charge right now, but that's what they say they're going for. So violence in the community or not, they must have something that suggests that.
Well, as a defense lawyer, my question is, what does the forensic evidence tell us? And I think they probably know something about this case that we don't. For example, was she shot in the head facing forward? Was she shot from the side? Or do the entry wounds come through the back of her head? You know, a claim of self-defense where you shoot someone in the back of the head is going to be very tough to make. Secondly, I would add, I wonder if there was any blood on the handgun. When we have murders where someone is shot at point-blank range, there's always that blood spatter on the gun. So if there's blood spatter on the gun and she was shot in the back of the head, I don't know if this is self-defense. So the forensic evidence is going to be very important in this case.
And what about the other part of it, Rachel, that is that police have said, they've said so little about this, but they have said they haven't called to the home before for other domestic disputes. We don't know who was involved exactly, but what about that? How does that add into this case?
It's definitely going to come into play with regard to whether or not he's violent, whether or not he has a premeditation for violence. And it's our understanding that prior girlfriends have said that he was violent with her, and the victim in this case, her Twitter announcement just the day before this all happened had to do with standing up for victims of domestic violence. So it's absolutely going to come into a play, but I believe that forensically it's going to need to be proven that it was premeditated. And I think that might be tough to prove, but at this point, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Everything's so soon.
There is something that he also posted on Twitter that's getting a little of attention. This in the New York Times today. Oscar Pistorious in November said this: nothing like getting home to hear the washing machine on and thinking it's an intruder, to go into full combat recon mode into the pantry. You know, you don't know if he's kind of making a joke about this, getting nervous walking into his own home. We've all probably been in there before, Brian, where you kind of get spooked about something. But it's been documented that he says sometimes when he had sleepless nights, he would go to the gun range. He's talked about that a little bit. How, you know, what does this suggest to you as a criminal defense attorney?
It tells me I have a very nervous defendant, you know, and by the way, it might be for good reason. He's a celebrity. You know, he's an Olympian. People know him, and I'm sure in his community they know where he lives. You know, in terms of his personality, he might be someone who's nervous, who has a lot of security concerns. But I think to a certain degree, that security concern is very well founded. But again, it does tell us we have someone that might have a bit more of an eager trigger finger, so to speak, than just a regular average person.
And so, Rachel, if you were preparing for this case, what's the first move that you would make if you were part of his defense team?
I would start investigating all of the crime statistics regarding everything that happens down there with home invasions and burglaries, and I would start working the tragic accident defense and the defense of self-defense.
You know, there's so much being focused on him. You can't forget the woman who died in all of this and the family right now planning the funeral. Brian and Rachel, great to have you. It's an interesting story and one we'll watch very closely over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you both.
President Obama